Welcome to the Two Steps Ahead podcast, starring Robert Sean McGrew and Raul Ruiz, talking business, strategy, and growth, helping you stay 2 steps ahead. Let's get to work.
Welcome to the Two Steps Ahead podcast. I'm Robert Sean McGrew.
I'm Raul Ruiz.
And we're back, folks. There's been a lot of things going on. We talked about planning last time, right? And over the last couple of weeks between sessions and recording, a lot has happened, but not without planning, right? And there's a lot of technology that is happening. And I'm not talking about worldwide. I'm not talking about humanoid robots and self-driving cars and stuff. Everybody knows about that.
Everybody knows about that. That's right. Yep.
But here locally, we've got things going on. We have things that are happening. And there's been a lot of conferences and meetups. And we want to talk to you about those.
Yeah, it's been a great couple of weeks, actually. We went to a couple of conferences together, which was pretty awesome because we got to meet some great people, heard some great speakers.
We did, and we'll talk about a couple of those speakers here in just a moment, but also we want to let you know that there's just so much going on, and the main thing is you need to get connected. You need to understand some of these things are happening. We talk to people every day. You're always recruiting daily, I'm talking to businesses, and people are like, I need technology, I need AI, I need machine learning, I need to know how to do a podcast. I need these different tools, but I just don't know where to find them. And then you got people on the other side of things that are like, dude, check this out. And we're like, what is that?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, we all talk about the tech stacks that we need to run our business successfully, whether it be recruiting or consulting or anything like that, or working with different vendors or suppliers. It's all about the tech stacks, right?
It is. And each tech stack is different.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's confusing for people about technology. How do I know what I need? And where do I inflict myself? So let's start with AI. You and I have been playing around with AI for a couple of months now. And I do say a couple of months, even though it's been around a little bit more, but like really doing something with it. What are some of the things that you have found in using AI itself?
You know what? It's a work in progress. It really is. I mean, you got ChatGPT, you got Copilot, you got all these other variables that you go out there at any time and work with them. It really is just playing with them, experimenting with them, learning about them, and I don't know if you had a chance. I know I did just recently. I created my own doll, I guess, my action figure. I think that's a real good thing in LinkedIn that everybody's doing and participating in, and I did it. And man, if I could do it, I know you can too. So I'm waiting for him to do his though.
You kind of look like your doll right now.
I do, don't I?
Chicago Cubs.
That's right.
There's a marketing something.
There is a marketing flow here, absolutely.
I went to a lunch and learn recently with Women in Technology. They're a wonderful group, and ladies, if you're looking to get into tech, you've got to get connected with them. And if you've got daughters, you need to connect with them. Everybody needs to connect with them. But they're doing different things in different ways. And this is the reason I'm bringing this up. They talked about AI, cloud, and data. Completely different stacks. Doesn't mean they're all connected or they work with each other. Everybody in the world thinks it is, and you'll be sold that. And that's not completely true. Yeah. So on AI specifically, though, it was interesting because a lot of people want to learn AI and stuff like that. It's like, okay, but it doesn't do what I want it to do. And what everybody needs to understand is that we are in phase 1 of AI, which we are teaching AI. AI doesn't know anything until we teach it.
It's everything we put into the system, you get back out. It just gets it in large amounts of quantities. That's basically what it does. That's the first phase of AI, right? I mean, putting information in, getting all that information out. So there's a ton of information all over the world that goes into the AI system that you have access to at any given second. You don't have to Google things anymore. You can just go to ChatGPT and it gives you an enormous amount of feedback on what you want to know.
If you tell it, read me a book, To Kill a Mockingbird.
I've never read that.
Now you don't have to. Now you can tell ChatGPT another AI.
The highlights.
We'll read it.
Yeah.
Give me the Cliff Notes. Remember Cliff Notes?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
AI is now your Cliff Notes version. You can tell it to read a book, magazine, whatever, and it can come back and give you a synopsis. It can give you a full report. It can give you word for word phrases, who said it in the book, what character, etc.
We're not advocating for you to write your own report and then have this submitted, but it does have that option.
Just because it found it doesn't mean that it's right.
Exactly.
You can't use it verbatim. Your teachers, your professors will know. But you can get a bunch of information back. And something simple as reading a book or magazine, it can do. Now, and it can write a report from it. But if you told it to read 10 books, give me your opinion on which one is better, and chronologically order them according to X, Y, Z. It'll start learning to do that, but it won't do it exactly, and you'll get frustrated. I've been frustrated, not because I've been looking at books, but just in general, because I've told it to do many things, and then it didn't, and I'm like, but it's supposed to do it. Why is it not?
It's supposed to. It should. It will. It probably will. It's just not doing it now.
That's right.
I will add to that point you said about the book report and all that good stuff. I have had instances where I have created my own marketing material through AI. Let me tell you, you want to double and triple check the wording and the spelling because it's wrong.
It's funny, especially if you're trying to mix Gen AI. Yeah, I wrote this for me, now I want to put graphics for it. Gen AI is not there yet as far as spelling. And if you're looking for perfection, you're definitely in the wrong place.
Absolutely.
But there are a lot of benefits in it. And it's not just one. Everybody talks about ChatGPT. But like you mentioned, you got Copilot. You heard of Grok.
Absolutely.
Grok, if you're an Elon Musk fan, that's one out there. And that one's a little trippy. I like to play with my AIs and try to get a little more personal.
Yeah.
And that one, because it is Musk's own created version, there's a bias to it, and it's dealing with space. The responses you get are kind of space-natured and related, and it's kind of fun.
I have not had the pleasure of using it. Well, awesome.
You can think about it, and then that it's going to talk to you in space terms.
Perfect.
Yeah. So going back to the lunch and learn with Women in Tech, they were talking about cloud data and AI. What can I do with AI? What is it? And we've talked about how you've got to teach it. You've got to teach it, and not to be afraid. A lot of people are afraid, like, I'm going to lose my job to technology, I'm going to lose my job to AI. And you're not if you're smart about it, right? You do need to learn and understand tech stacks, not to the degree that an engineer would, but in the ability to use it towards what it's applicable to use.
Exactly. And it's supposed to make life easier, not make it harder. Don't make it harder on yourself by thinking that it's going to take your job away and automatically just not have a job going forward. No, it's there for you to utilize correctly to advance yourself, advance your career, advance whatever you're working on, make things easier. That's ultimately the object of it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was the thing about this lunch and learn, was that you don't have to know it all or know anything, but you do have to do it. You have to participate, and you got to be part of it. And that helps, especially people that are wanting to do something in technology. It's not about knowing it all. It's about getting involved. Even with cloud and data, which we can talk about another time, so that's a whole other realm that people don't understand completely. But this organization particularly, and especially for women, if you're interested in learning certain things, they get together and they talk about those things. It's not a master class. It's not one of those videos that you sit there and you kind of like, oh my God, is it ain't over yet? But it's actually practical conversations.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I like the fact that they also have other groups within that group, right? I mean, they have Girls in Tech, which Sean mentioned a little while ago. As young as 8 years old, I mean, get your daughter into a group like that. You know, AI is new, but there's also a bunch of other technologies coming our way, and security and cybersecurity specifically. There's so many aspects to technology, as Sean mentioned, that you really have a great opportunity to move into technology at any given time, at any age.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, different realms, cybersecurity, huge conference just happened here recently on the campus of Walmart. This is their 6th year. All things cybersecurity. And everybody's like, yeah, well, that doesn't sound really fun, right? and it may not be to some, but it's something that you should consider for yourself on a personal level and at a business level as well.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many things out there, so many vulnerabilities. That's a word that's not common amongst people who don't understand tech as much. But let's talk about vulnerabilities. What is a vulnerability?
Hey, vulnerability is having the ability to be vulnerable, to give it up. You don't want to give out your private information, right? That's something you want to keep secure, right? So that's vulnerability. That's risk. You're accepting risk whenever your information is out there. Whether it's on the phone, on a computer, on the cloud, on the internet, you're vulnerable to a hack, to getting your identity stolen. Those were the things that were covered at this conference, which was amazing. I give it up to Walmart and Global Tech. They did an amazing job. It was very well attended. But you definitely want to go ahead and be the type of individual that stays ahead of the game, whether it's on the phone, spoofing. Spoofing is a big one, which I really didn't know. I knew what it was, but I didn't know exactly that's what it was.
Well, let's explain it. Let's explain
Yeah,
it because
sure.
we're trying to have people understand simple things, and spoofing's not simple to somebody. They're like, what the heck is that? So, spam calls.
We all get them every day.
Thankfully, the carriers are now saying this is probably a spam call, so not answering that one. But what happens with spoofing is they will pick up a number, and it looks real. It says, the city that you're in. It says Raul Reese is calling you. I'm like, oh, Raul's calling me? And I don't even really pay attention to the number. The number may be his, and they do that as well.
They have the accessibility to get your information and use it like it's actually coming from you.
And so what are you going to do? I'm going to pick it up. It's Raul. Hey, what's
Exactly.
up? A vulnerability is having the ability or allowing somebody to access something of yours that they don't need to do. Dumb it down, non-tech, your house, front door, got a lock on it. Why? It's vulnerability to somebody knocking on doors,
Exactly.
pinging stuff on doors, or checking to see if anybody's home. Got the lock, they can't come in.
Yeah.
That is what vulnerabilities do. They lock things out. And from a tech standpoint, it locks people out from your private information.
When you get home, first thing you do is probably lock your door, right? You go around the house, you make sure your back door is locked, your windows are closed. That's actually a risk assessment. You're assessing your risk of somebody breaking into your house. You don't want them to be there. So, yeah, you definitely want to make sure that everything is tidy the way it's supposed to be. And if it is, then that's your risk assessment.
That's right. So risk assessment, spoofing, these are different terms used within the tech world, but at the same time, it's important. The Walmarts of the world and all the companies that were there with them and stuff are all trying to see how can we help each other to make sure that we're protecting our data, to also being able to get to my own data, and to understand, like you said a moment ago, where I'm at. You see, I go on trips and stuff, and I've got my protocols at home, and I'm very cautious in my risk assessments and knowing that, hey, that chair was moved. It's something simple, something stupid, but that's part of what it is. The same thing from a tech standpoint. Understanding I've got data, I've got things in certain places, and something doesn't look right.
I got a story about that. When I was 6 years old, I was in first grade, and this was back in Chicago when I was a kid. I would go to school by myself. It was probably about a mile away, let's say 3/4 of a mile. But I would go to school by myself and come home by myself. I lived on the 3rd floor of a building. What I would do in the morning before I left, I had a couple of pans, and I would put them behind the door when I left. I closed the door and I went to school. Then I would come back home at 3:30, whatever time it was. I would open the door slowly and make sure that those pans, pots and pans, were not moved. If they were moved, I would run out the door and get out. But if they weren't moved, I'd go straight inside. So that was my risk assessment as a 6-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great story, and to put it into tech terms, that's exactly the same thing here. Something doesn't look right. Wait a minute, why is he accessing this database or this application? And so from a dumbing down standpoint, that's what happens with hacks. People start asking you questions. Hey, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite team? And you're like, oh yeah, it's blue, it's Chicago Cubs. And his name is Raul.
Right.
Okay, cool. And then now they've got certain information on you. I know a lot of you have gone through this already, but scams are a real thing. And that was one thing that Rai was there and they were talking about this and they're doing a lot of things and really appreciate what they're doing. And they're adamant and they're very looking to find those kinds of people. The guy that's talking, he likes to play with scammers, which is funny in itself. See, I like to play with scammers too. We'll talk about that another time. Anyway, let's get back to cybersecurity.
I think we all do, don't we?
You're toying with me, man. Not the Chicago Cup toy.
No, not at all. No.
But back to the conference. So it was very interesting to even listen to Department of Defense. They represented cybersecurity. As a country, we're vulnerable. National security is a big thing, but they're very heavily involved in tech. And a lot of tech actually comes from our government. People don't realize that. Sometimes it kind of goes there first, and then it comes to.
Yep.
Yeah. And speaking of the Department of Defense too, one of the local programs, Fuel Accelerator, is expanding into Arizona, where they're doing a dual-use accelerator with the government, bringing the private sector and the government together to solve something.
Which leads us to our next topic. When you think about it, what we did these last couple of weekends going to these conferences is networking. you go there not just to learn, but to meet people in our space, meet professionals, meet executives, meet individuals that we can network with, right?
Absolutely. If you're just going to hear the word cybersecurity, you're missing out. You really need to go and find a Raul, find a Robert Sean, find somebody that makes sense for you to connect with. Because there's so many things out there, and we individually, as we mentioned, we don't know it all. In order to teach the tech, you've got to understand the tech. So it's kind of egg first, chicken,
Exactly. Yep, absolutely.
Which one's first?
I don't know. That's a question for the ages. If you know the answer, put it down below.
I was gonna say it's for the chickens. Anyway, but the networking definitely. If you're not utilizing it, it doesn't matter if it's a coffee, if it's a social event, if it's a conference, even one of your kids' school. I mean, there's different kinds of places. Even like the place where I hear. Yeah, and for those that are kind of wondering what's kind of this backdrop, this is the place in Bentonville. Emily and Josh Shafran are the proprietors here. It's a great place to chill and network.
That's right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat up here and just, met a Raul and we just hit it off and talked about each other's business and understanding, and then finding people that actually I need to talk to more often.
That's right. It's about having conversations. It's a basic conversation, Meet somebody, ask their name, what do they do? And that's how the conversation starts. That's what networking is.
And I think there's one key thing that too, as far as networking is concerned. Networking isn't just meeting the person and say, okay, I know what he does now, that's it. But it's really deeply, getting a little bit deeper level, understanding that person and their business a little bit more. We all need help. Each of us needs some help at some point or another, and we should be genuine in that. Yes, there are people out there still that are in it for themselves, that only will talk to you because they need something from you, and then that's it. And that's unfortunate, but if you properly use networking, it can take.
It's about paying it forward, knowing people, getting to know them, understanding their business, what their goals are, and be reciprocal, right? Understand each other well enough that you can send them referrals, you can introduce them to other people. That's what networking is all about.
And speaking of networking, speaking of Jen's place and Josh, he connected me to a conference I went to recently for logistics. They had a supply chain expo, and it was phenomenal. I mean, if you're not a supply chain person or a logistics person, and it's more than just the trucks on the road, you tell you that. If you buy any product, it is part of supply chain. If you have something delivered, you're part of the supply chain.
That's right.
Everybody interacts with it, even though you don't really realize it. It was a nice afternoon conference, and they were talking about the different pieces and things, like the warehouse, and simply even moving things from one side to the other, and understanding how much you have on one side or the other. And everybody's like, well, that's kind of simple. If you got 100 cases and you move them to the other side, you got 100 cases.
Theory, that would be simple, but you're talking about 1,000 here, 1,000 there, 2,500 here.
One broke.
Yeah, exactly. Now you got to reduce that by one. You always need systems, right? There's another tech stack. You need ERP, whether it's SAP or whatever the case may be. ERP is going to function as your primary source to keep that information available at any given time. To work with logistics, to work with supply chain, it's all cohesive, but at the same time, you have to know what those tech stacks are.
You're starting to sound a little old school there, a little ERP, a little SAP, you know me. That's another thing about business is acronyms, right?
Absolutely,
Getting to understand what those mean and stuff too. We won't get into all those at this moment.
That will be for a later date,
That's
sure.
Right, that's right. But getting back to networking, I found out, and I actually saw some people I haven't seen in a while that are also in the supply chain area. Well, it's really neat to not only listen and participate, but taking something out of it. And I learned in here that, some of what I do as a consultant can benefit some of those people in the room. And likewise, those people in there can definitely benefit me because, like I just mentioned, we're constantly buying products and moving stuff, and I mean, how'd you get your vehicle? Where'd they come from? Supply chain. So for the supply chain, go out to the dealer's lot.
And they all have processes, right? They all have a process that they go through, so.
That's correct. Right? So speaking of process, from a networking standpoint, what is your go-to way of meeting a new person?
That's a great question. I can meet a person at Walmart. I can meet a person while hanging in line at Walmart. You should network anywhere and everywhere, really. Anywhere you can meet somebody is a networking opportunity. Whether it's for your business, personal, whatever the case may be, you have the ability to meet people anywhere. I sat here waiting for you before we started the podcast, and I met somebody who does technical recruiting. We connected, now we're hooked up on LinkedIn, so it can happen anywhere.
I like to pick the person in the room. And sometimes people are shy about it. Some people will go and talk to anybody, right? You got those people. You got those people that will go towards the person they know. Oh, Rose, hey, Rose, what's up? I like to go in and I watch the room, and I like to see people that are either timid or shy, or maybe it's their first time there, and go up and talk to them and get them, a little warm, even if it's not an event or that I'm familiar with or what have you. But I get out of my comfort zone because I want to meet somebody, but also want to make them feel good.
That's an interesting method. I like that method. Very good.
There's little methods to it, but it's not for everybody. So I'm not saying that that's the way you got to do it.
That's the method.
Or the way that we're doing. So we're sharing methods just because it's important to have something in mind. What are you going there for? What is my purpose in attending this event, this meeting, this, or even just being a Walmart, Maybe he wasn't even looking to meet anybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
You just never know.
You just never know. You just never know. Or you'd be having a drink with tequila and some Coke. So hey, cheers.
Cheers.
I had to put that in. We talk about what we drink, so that's what we're drinking today. Where's yours?
Well, I'm not doing tequila, man. There's no way I could do tequila. But networking, in general, it has a huge benefit, and it can pay dividends for you if you know how to do it right. And I'm also not saying to be that person that goes in there, hey, I'm the person, and I'm going to go shake everybody's hand. You don't have to be a politician. Be genuine. Be yourself. Know what you're looking for and what you want. Maybe we talked about a couple different conferences already. Maybe I'm looking to meet a certain person. And that's how you find the person is by going around. If you do find somebody or some potential somebodies that could benefit you, then there's the follow-up. Let's talk about
follow-up. My follow-up is when I meet somebody, we connect on LinkedIn. That's pretty much a given, right? After I learn a little bit about them, I like to schedule a one-on-one meeting where we can meet in a quiet environment, whether it be a coffee shop or meet for lunch. We kind of get to know each other a little bit better, knowing our businesses a little bit better, knowing what each of us do on a regular basis and what we're looking for. That's ultimately to me, that's the networking part.
My follow-up is similar to yours. I do connect with them. LinkedIn is my form. But I also send an email and send a text to exchange business cards. And I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, are you still using business cards? And we run into that too, right?
Yeah.
And there's the whole digital thing. And I like the business card. Yes, I'm a little old school in that aspect of things. It's something that's physical. The firm that did my cards, I get lots of compliments on it. And that's one of the reasons I keep doing it. Because it's something people remember. Branding and imaging, the way you present yourself is important. That's why this follow-up is important too. Giving out my business card, people end up following up with me almost immediately in a lot of cases just because it's something memorable to them. But if you don't have that, and that's okay, and I've been without it before too, you can bring out your phone, get connected real quick. I mean, the important thing is to follow up, touch base. I would say within 24 hours. And you want to not only make that first impression, but also if you're really serious about this and that person is somebody you need to be speaking with, then you don't want to wait for that. Unless they told you, I'm going on vacation starting tomorrow, I'll be out of the office for a few days, I've got something going on.
Yeah, give them a couple weeks then.
That's right. But give them their space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And give them the space. That sounds like a relationship. That's what networking evolves into, relationships. I've had people that I've networked with all my years and still keep in contact with them, but it started off with generally some kind of form of network, whether it was through business, through community, through politics, through school, what have you. What if that person doesn't call me? What if that person doesn't follow up?
Shall we cry? Let's hope not. Everybody's busy, trying to hit the trail, so to speak, to make something happen here in Bentonville. So
that's right, helping all the world.
Exactly. Everybody's hitting it hard, and sometimes things get lost. We're busy on an everyday scale, so we may not communicate as quickly as possible, but just keep at it, because there will be a time where they'll be able to go ahead and reach back out. So don't give up.
No, don't give up. That's a big thing.
Exactly. Do not give up.
And so we talked about TAC networking and not giving up. Those three things alone are valuable. Figure out what you're trying to achieve and do, where you want to get to. It could be something simple, surface learning, no problem with that. It could be, I really want to get into a tech area and learn more in depth. I want to learn how to have AI do something for me versus me telling it what to do. You can learn cloud and data, you can learn tech stacks, we talked about those earlier. The key thing is getting into those doesn't just happen. Yes, you can Google things, you can look on YouTube, you can teach yourself. But networking and finding somebody that knows that niche or is an expert in that area, has some background, or is willing to mentor you, that's where you need to lean into. Be ready to go.
Keep your options open.
And going to some of these tech events, coffees, networkings, you're going to end up running into somebody eventually at some point. It takes some work, but nothing comes without effort.
That's right.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing here. Tech, you got to put effort into it. Networking, you got to put effort into it. But where are you putting your efforts? That's the increase.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I hope you learned something today, and hope it was a very entertaining episode for our second full episode. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll get together soon. And
like we've mentioned in our other episodes, we're not trying to be professional by any means. We want it to be casual. We want you to learn something. If there's a topic out there that you want us to touch base on, and very soon we'll start bringing people into this podcast to get their perspectives, not just ours. The big thing is we want to keep you 2 steps ahead in your life and in your business. So we hope you'll join us again next time. I'm Robert Sean. This is Raul. You guys have a great time.
take care.
Peace.